Welcome back to A Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. Are you better off this year than you were last year? That's something that people often ask when trying to decide whether a president is doing good and performing to the expectations people have of them. Well, according to a recent survey, over half of Americans said no. 55% of the respondents to a new NPR PBS News Merits poll said that they felt that President Donald Trump was moving the country in a negative direction, which is a 4% increase over the same question posed last April and a 7% increase over roughly this same time last year. Respondents who said that Donald Trump was moving the country in a worse direction are actually up nearly 10% over January of 2021, which was the last month of his first term in office. With a seeming impending war with Iran, increased tensions with ICE, weak economic policies that don't seem to be helping the American people at all, and deteriorating our relationships with our allies abroad, it's not hard to see why dissatisfaction with him and his performance while in office seems to be growing exponentially as the months go on. There is certainly a lot of evidence to support the feeling that we are going in a bad direction. We are worse off now than we were a year ago. And if the president keeps steering the country the way he has, we will only be worse off next year compared to this year. But I guess when I say we, I mean average Americans, regular people. The ultra wealthy have actually had a great year compared to last. The Jeff Bezos and the Elon Musks have seen their fortunes balloon over the last year. And considering we've had a president who has put forward economic policies that favor the rich and enrich them, including himself, that doesn't come as much of a surprise. I have no doubt if you could somehow get these rich people to answer these kinds of polls, they would say the country is going in a great direction. They look forward to seeing it continue because they've only made loads more money in this last year under President Trump and look forward to making even more. But unless you're part of the ultra wealthy class, I think it's really hard to argue that you've had a better year this year than you did last, despite running on promises that he would bring the prices down. Affordability is at an all-time low. Food prices are high, gas prices are high, and people are genuinely struggling out there, with no sense that the president is doing absolutely anything to help ease their burden. What's surprising, or I guess not that surprising when you think about it, 75% of the surveyed Republicans said that they thought the state of the country was strong and it was going in a good direction. They're often amongst the people who are suffering the most, so for them to come and say that they feel that things are going well seems completely disconnected from the reality that all of us are experiencing. And I think it is exactly in that very phrase that I've hit upon just how they managed to have that high a number of Republican respondents saying that they felt the country was going in a positive direction and it was strong. Far too many of them are disengaged and disconnected from the wider reality. What they know about the state of the nation is what the propaganda has told them it is. And they don't see any great decrease in their general way of life. And the problems they do find, they do not lay upon the feet of the president, but instead say, oh, that's Joe Biden's fault. That's the Democrats, because that's what they've been told, so that's what they believe. They are victims, and they don't even understand how victimized they have been. This last year under President Trump has felt like 10. He's managed to drag the country to depths in only a year that we couldn't even imagine we could reach. He's raised the national debt by over $2 billion and is set to raise it 3 times that in the course of his presidency. That doesn't say to me the country is headed in a positive direction under his leadership. Things unquestionably seem worse. People feel less safe, less confident that things are better or are going to get any better. You've got armed men patrolling the streets, terrorizing the people. Simple things like medical care seems less affordable than ever before. In a country led by a leader who seems to only care about enriching himself and his rich buddies, it does seem increasingly hard to feel like the country is going in a good direction, or to even really feel proud of being an American at all these days. If the country was a boat, it really does feel like our captain is steering the ship into very dark waters, and it feels like only about half of us actually notice and are sounding the alarm. And I think that's one of the most frustrating parts. Not only that it's seemingly such a small percentage of the total people who are seeing just how bad things are getting and how bad they've gotten between last year and this one. It's also that pointing that out, any sort of criticism of our dear leader is seen by many as anti American. Oh, you just hate America. I would argue it's quite the opposite. Pointing out just how bad things are getting and how bad they may get in the future if the current trends continue is actually showing a concern and love for the country. If one truly hated this country, they would be glad that things were going in a negative direction. They would cheer it on and look forward to the collapse of the country. But of course, that's the exact opposite of what they're saying. If people are really starting to wake up to the negative direction the country is headed, it is because they love this country and want to see it thrive and get better. Because that's what you do when you care about something. If you see symptoms of a larger problem, you point them out, you try to address them, you don't just let them grow until things get even worse. If anything, it's saying things may have gotten bad and are bad right now, but that means that they can get better if some changes are made. If different policies are implemented, things can get better from where they are right now. It's not just all about negativity. I think in some ways, in that case, it's a matter of perspective. For many people, criticism is universally negative. If you're saying something isn't good, that must mean you hate it and it's bad. Criticism can also be a way of showing how things can improve. Yes, saying you feel that the country has moved in a bad direction and that it's currently worse off than it was 1 year ago is a negative statement, but it is not exclusively a negative one. I, for one, believe in this country very much and its potential, but I don't believe it can live up to that potential if I don't acknowledge that things are not as good as they could be and that there's a massive room for improvement. I think back to my time in school when I was doing graphic design study and the professor would project students' work on the front of the classroom for people to critique. It was a vulnerable place to be. You had your work right up there for everyone to see and to criticize and have things to say about. And it was very easy to take a negative thing said against your work personally and said, oh, they're criticizing my work. They think it's bad. That means I'm bad at this. It's a bad product. But obviously, that's not what the critique was meant for. Pointing out the flaws in the work was a way of showing where the faults were so that they could be fixed and improved and the final product would be better. When all you saw was your own work, you'd sometimes be stuck in this idea of, I know how it's supposed to be. It looks fine to me from my perspective, but it's not until you get an outside perspective that you can understand where the weaknesses may lie that you were blind to simply because you were too hyper focused on how you thought it was supposed to be, so it was only seen through your eyes. Expanded on a much greater level, and that's what we have here. Saying that there are problems with the way the country is and has been is not saying that the country itself is bad or there's something wrong with it. It's saying that there are things that could be fixed to make it even better. And criticisms of the country do not come out of a place of malice, but out of a place of love for the country and a belief that with certain things being changed and altered, it could be even better than it is now, and a vision for how great it can be in the future. But when people get too fixated on, well, things are okay from my perspective, I am doing okay, so the country must also be doing fine, it's when things are no longer able to improve because nobody wants to acknowledge that there are problems. And those who do are seen as overly negative and down on America. The reality is that we can't do better until we all do better, not just the rich people. As a nation, we can't really feel safe until we all feel safe. Real American prosperity is when we all succeed together, not just those at the top. And while the president certainly didn't steer the country to where we are today on his own, he certainly hasn't done the best job as our nation's captain, because he's really magnified and amplified a lot of our problems as a country. It is not a surprise to see that recent polling showed him at an over 56% disapproval rating with an approval rating that is barely over 40%. And that's just amongst the people who are willing to take those polls. The actual number is likely much higher for disapproval and lower for approval. If they'd surveyed me and asked me Are we better off now than we were 1 year ago? I would say no. But I would also say that we can be, that despite how it feels sometimes, all is not lost. And we're not just in a national downward spiral that has no bottom. The problems that we've seen go from 1 year to the next aren't ones that could not be potentially addressed. Our course can be righted into the positive direction. The key there, of course, is for us as a nation to acknowledge that there are problems and that they are fixable ones, and then take steps to fix them. But as long as 75% of respondent Republicans say that the state of the nation is strong and we're going in a good direction, it just makes that take even longer and make the fight even harder. The only way to really, truly move forward is together. And until we collectively acknowledge that we have maybe not moved in the most positive direction in the last year and take steps to correct that, we won't. This year marks our country's 250th birthday. And while we should all definitely be proud that it's made 250 years, if we want it to last another 250 years, we have to make some real serious changes and be very introspective on the state of our nation and what it's going to be like going forward. Alright guys, that'll be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice, and until next time when I cut you off, another slice of news. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find it.